Well, good evening, everyone. We're at 6:02, and I know we'll still have some folks joining us, but my name is Shelley Muma, and I work in leadership, student engagement, and first year experience, and my area coordinates all of the orientation and transition activities on campus. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We've got a pretty good turnout. It looks like we've got almost 90 folks on the call right now. And we knew that new students and family members or guardians would have some questions about life on campus. And in the age of COVID-19, there are even more questions. We know that. And so there are a few of us on the call tonight. As we go through, everyone will introduce themselves when they begin speaking. We'll each give a very short presentation, and we hope to have at least 20 minutes for questions at the end. We're also recording the session tonight, and it will be posted online. And so if you have questions as we go, you can type them in the chat box. When we get to that Q&A portion, I'll go through and read the questions and identify the staff members on the call that can take the lead on answering those questions. And if there are questions that we don't have time to get to, we'll make a list of those and I'll collect those responses and we'll post those up on the website as well. So let me just let in a couple more folks, and I'm going to share my screen. And let's see here. Perfect. And so this gives you those instructions as well. You can just type that into the chat box as we go, and we'll make a note and be able to do those questions. So let's see here. So we're going to start off talking about classes with Dr. Bailey.
All right, good evening, everyone. David Bailey, I'm the Dean of the Division of Natural Sciences at St. Norbert and Professor of Biology. I also teach for the Medical College of Wisconsin Green Bay, which calls our Gil Mulva Science Center home. So I'm going to talk a little bit about classes, and then Dr. Stephen Rupsch is going to take the second half of this. So the first thing in terms of how classes are going to be a little bit different is we're starting 1 week earlier. So normally we start later in August. We're starting August 24th instead of August 31st. The other thing that we did in terms of modifying the academic calendar is we normally have this delightful long weekend in early October in which on Thursday and Friday there are no classes scheduled. But to limit, again, everyone leaving campus and then coming back, and everyone going to different spots and coming back to campus. There is no long weekend this year. We promise, though, we'll try to make it great, though. Still have some sort of long weekend, fun classes sort of thing in terms of instruction. We are going to end before Thanksgiving, so there will be classes on Monday and Tuesday, and then all classes on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving will be virtual. Normally, we do not have classes on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. There's no in-person classes on that Wednesday. We are going to have something virtual. Now, you're going to hear terms like synchronous versus asynchronous a lot. There are a number of lectures that will be delivered if it's in this hybrid format, which I'll talk about in a moment, in a synchronous fashion, in which if you have class at 8:30 on Monday morning, that's when the lecture is going to be delivered. But on that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we're not going to do the synchronous delivery. Everything is going to be asynchronous and recorded. Then that last week will be final exam week. Now, some faculty members might have the final exam on that Monday and Tuesday in person, and then some assignment that's due on finals week, and we're working on coordinating that to make sure that all finals aren't going to be on the same day, of course, and what exactly is going to be happening that week after Thanksgiving. So that's the modification of the academic calendar that's different from normal. Of course, masks, face coverings are going to be required in or on campus and in all these spaces. We have, and especially for the sciences, some face shields in place. So there are some instances in which, for example, in a chemistry course, a student might not be able to wear a mask because of certain chemicals and such that can actually stick in the fabric of the mask. So in lieu of plexiglass shield barriers that you see in a lot of, say, grocery stores now, we have these 270-degree face masks that cover the entire face down to about here, which ultimately then replace that plexiglass shield barrier. Most faculty members are going to deliver their courses in person, and we've shifted around some classrooms, which I'll talk about in a moment, to accommodate this physical distancing. But some faculty members might be delivering courses entirely online, and there are some who have certain circumstances that do require that. It is a small percentage. It's just over 10%, I believe, as it stands today. And then there are some faculty who are going to do a blended delivery. So you might have some stuff that is online, but most of the information is going to be delivered in person. In addition, I know Crystal Wohler is going to talk about a lot of this as well. We're going to have enhanced cleaning and disinfecting in the classroom. So everyone will be required to wipe down their space when they leave the classroom, perhaps when you arrive as well. So we do have spray bottles and paper towels in each of the classrooms. I heard today we're working on getting individual bottles for students for this disinfectant. Faculty members will do the same things. We're kind of, again, all in this together to make sure that we're disinfecting these spaces. We're also starting to work on things like traffic flow in buildings. So we don't want a number of students congregating in any one place, right, on campus or off campus. So in the Gale-Mulva Science Center, for example, there are 3 really commonly used classrooms that have entrances that are kind of at this dead end. And you can at one point have, say, even with the physical distancing, 75 to 80 students all in one spot, either when classes are starting or ending. So we're going to be working now on making sure that if you're going to one of these classrooms, you're following sort of a set route. And then physical distancing. So we are having lecture and lab in such a way that you will be about 6 feet away, and that's the CDC recommendation, from another student. The more complicated calculation involves the total area of a space divided by 48 square feet that's required for each person, and that led then to us to sort of shift around some classes. So if we can go to the next slide, here are just some representative classrooms. If you look in the bottom right, this is a room in the Gale-Mulva Science Center South Teaching Wing. So you can see that it's set up in such a way that each student is going to have his or her own table and will be separated 6 feet from another student. Normally, that would be 2 students sitting then at one table. So that's a traditional classroom space. But the other thing that we're doing is we're employing all of these non-traditional spaces on campus. So above that is our Campus Center Reflection Lounge. So the Campus Center right on the river, that's where Phil's is. There's a basketball court in there. And then upstairs is this reflection lounge where a number of students often go to, say, study. There's a bunch of couches and chairs normally in there, but we're employing spaces like this and things like the Hendrickson Dining Room and the Walter Theater to use as classrooms to accommodate this physical distancing in larger classes. We are also doing this for labs as well. So on the left, there is a picture of a physics teaching lab, again, in GMS, the Gale-Mulva Science Center. And normally we'd have, again, 4 students at those tables working in groups. So now it will be 2 students per table, and the tables are positioned in such a way that students are going to be 6 feet apart. So those are some examples of things that we're doing in classes, and now I'll pass it on to Stephen Rupsch.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Rupsch. I'm the Divisional Dean for the Visual and Performing Arts. I'm also an Associate Professor of Theater Studies. I'll start with the topic that's near and dear to my heart, the visual and performing arts, which you can imagine has been affected deeply by this. So one of the first things to know is that we will be having performances here on campus, but without audiences. Or the few that we do have with audiences will be probably invited guests and that sort of thing. But we're going to be doing a combination of live stream and pre-recorded, and maybe some events that have a little bit of both. So it's going to be kind of interesting, especially for music, the choral stuff, and bands, because we'll be filming them in different areas and then putting something together and then doing a single broadcast at one time. And I know that the actors that I work with, because I'm a director, so they're pretty excited about the idea of all of basically the film work that they're going to get done too. We also have art galleries here, which have amazing work, and those will still be open. The only difference there is that there's going to be a limit to the number of people that can go in. But I think that it's all going to be, there's going to be different areas on the floor that to identify, like, please stand here, wait over there. So it's going to be really orderly. Now, as far as the faculty life and your relationship with your individual faculty, oftentimes you want to meet with them, and we encourage that. We're encouraging as much virtual meeting as possible. However, if there's a time that you feel like you really need to talk to someone face-to-face, please do so, but contact the professor ahead of time to make sure that they can set up an appointment and set up a space where both of you can be safe and speak to each other. We also have a great teaching assistantship academic peer mentoring program here. So for specific classes, you can sign up and work in groups and find out and get a little bit closer to the understanding different concepts that are important. Those are still happening, but those are going to be done virtually, and then you would just sign up online for those. So our Office of Academic Success and Support and Accessibility continues to have a variety of services that are available to everyone. They're open 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. If you have any questions, or if your parents have any questions about the academic experience of this return to campus plan, then please feel free to contact them directly. There are many solutions that we have that we've come up with. We can't actually tell you all of it right now, but the one thing I will say, we have a fairly robust different programs where people leave campus for their studies, like our academic service learning, which is a class that is in class on campus, but then has a project where it goes off campus. Or it might be the TRIPS program, which is usually done during January or during the spring break, internships that we have, and of course our student teaching programs that we have set up with our education department, which are stellar. All of those things are still possible. We just have to make sure that our community members that are taking place in it are following the CDC guidelines. Things like the universal masking and physical distancing, and we have to be really careful, right? And so we want to make sure that even when you travel to and from the place, that those those guidelines are still being followed. So I'm gonna pass it on, and hopefully you'll have some questions for us later too.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Topman. I'm the Director of Residential Education and Housing, better known as REH on campus. And so I'm going to address a few things, some of the questions that are coming into our housing email inbox right now, and I'll try and touch base on kind of the predominant things that we've been hearing. So as you've been hearing already, face coverings will be required in regards to where you'll be living. They're required whenever you're outside of your private bedroom. So when you're in the lobby, the lounge, coming in and out of the building, we ask that you are wearing a cloth face covering at that time. Physical distancing in the residence halls obviously will be a little bit different. We're still hoping to have lounges and lobby areas open, but we will have couches and chairs divided up a little bit more to promote the physical distancing in there. We'll have a lot of posters and signs up about where to sit, where not to sit, those sort of things. Your roommate is considered part of your family when you come here, and so once you're in your bedroom, you can certainly take your mask off. You'll be living with a roommate, and so we want you to be comfortable with that environment. A suggestion would be to pack lightly to start the year. We know that there's a lot of questions, a lot of people wondering how things are going to go regarding COVID. And so instead of packing up your entire room to come to campus, we'd encourage you to kind of pack lightly just to begin with, to make sure we get things kicked off the right way to start the year. And then if you have a chance to get home and maybe bring up your winter clothes as it starts getting closer to colder weather, you can certainly do that. A small tip, if you could bring a thermometer. I know that's not a common thing that you're asked to bring to college, but we added that this year in hopes that all students will have one, so that if you are feeling well or need to check in regards to kind of COVID protocol, you can take your own temperature daily if need be. We are asking that no overnight off-campus guests stay in your room. And so certainly parents could come visit, friends could come visit, but we ask that no one stay overnight at this time. In regards to how many people could be in your room, this bullet point is a bit lengthy, but it was the best way I could explain it. But no more than 2 times the room occupancy of people present in a room. So for most of you, you'll be living with one other person. You'll be in a double room. That means you're allowed to have up to 4 people inside your room. We'd ask again that face coverings be worn if maybe the people that are coming to visit, if people come to visit and they're not SNC students, that they still wear a mask in your room, but we still want to try and limit it to 2 times the number of beds or people in a room. We ask that when you set up your rooms, that you try to keep head-to-head bed setups, just to keep kind of that breathing atmosphere. I know your roommate is going to be considered your family, but just to be a little bit more cautious, we're encouraging you to try and set up your bed so that the 2 heads are not together, whether that be a loft up and a loft down. If you put both lofts up, try not to set it where the 2 heads, your 2 heads are together on the same end of the loft setup. Kitchens are going to be closed. We know that first-year students are on meal plans. And so to do our best in regards to kitchen areas being a higher potential or a higher risk for COVID, we decided to close the kitchens. Again, you're all on meal plans, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue, I'm hoping. But again, it's just a step that we're doing to try and keep everybody safe as we begin the year. Challenge your peers to follow health and safety guidelines. I'll talk about my staff here in a minute. They'll be there to help kind of enforce policies, but really we're going to need all of you to be able to challenge one another to make sure folks are wearing masks when they come and go from their rooms, when they're hanging out in study areas, things like that. We really just want kind of a general care for one another and make sure that we're protecting each other and encouraging to health and safety guidelines around COVID. Bullet point I have here is if there's anything my staff can do to help you out, let us know. Usually at orientation, I get to talk to all of you a little bit more about who my staff members are. I didn't have that option this summer, so this is my chance. But my area coordinators are professional staff members that live in the residence halls, and they supervise my student staff member, which are community advisors and resident assistants. Most of you will get to know your RA. My RAs and CAs will also be doing programming and doing different things to help you connect with other students. It will look a little different this year because of COVID, but we're still going to do our best to make college fun and exciting, get you to meet other people, those sorts of things. So again, if there's anything we could do for you when you get to campus, those are the folks that you're going to see in your buildings as you're moving in. Let us know, and we hope you have a great experience. So we're going to do our best to make sure that happens. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa DePra, and I'm the Director of Dining Services, and I'm also the campus dietitian. We've been working really hard to make sure that students are still going to have the ability to dine together in person, because we realize that this is one of the more important things That's part of the college experience. So we've expanded our time. So we've increased our hours of service, and we've also expanded our spaces. So we do have in Michael's Commons, there is going to be in-person seating available with physical distancing. So the chairs are all situated and the positions at the tables are marked for our 6-foot physical distancing. And most tables you can get at least 3 people at a table, which is great. So you can still have that experience. Masks are going to be mandatory until you're seated, and that's to help protect the campus community and the dining staff. Once you're seated, you can remove your mask, and then again, once you're ready to leave, please put your mask back on and head towards the exits. And of course, clean hands are going to be critical to keeping everybody safe on campus, and we'll have sanitizer absolutely everywhere in there. You can't miss it. So the dining page, there's lots and lots of information on the dining page, including a frequently asked questions page, what your meal plan will look and feel like with COVID. And also there's a video that literally walks you through what it's going to be like. So I encourage everybody to see that if they haven't watched that already. In terms of your meal plan as first and second year students on campus, we do offer, historically we called it unlimited dine-in meals, which meant you could come and go as much as you would like. This year we've added that to be any meal can be carry out or dine in. And that's really important because I know some folks aren't going to feel safe. Some folks are going to want to take a meal to go and sit out on one of the patios we've set up. So we're going to have a lot of flexibility, but there's still going to be 7 meal periods set up for students to come throughout the day. In addition to Ruth's Marketplace, there's seating upstairs in the ballroom, which is, they're both in Michael's Commons. And then we've also added a second location at the Bemis International Center. The Hendrickson Dining Room is going to be available. For those of you that want to see how busy places are and you want to make sure that you can dine in, we are going to have seating available on Open Table for any of that indoor seating. We also are working on a program right now so that you can have a mobile ID on your phone and you can have contactless entry into buildings and also in for your meal plan. And we will be operating in a cashless capacity this fall. And that again is a handling safety. The majority of our guests use their meal plan ID cards. Credit and debit cards will still be accepted as well. But we're not going to take any cold hard cash. As of right now, we are suspending guest and visitor use of the dining halls. And again, that's to help protect the campus community. Our food is really good and people like to come and from the local community and enjoy the food, but we have to put our students first and their safety first. So at this time, we're just allowing students in the dining halls. So in addition to the unlimited dine-in meals for the marketplace, there's also $450 in meal dollars attached to the meal plan. And that's money to spend in this current semester. That's available at any on-campus food venue. We have 3 small restaurants on campus. We have Phil's, which is in the campus center. It's a cook-to-order grill and C-store. We have Dale's, which opens as its own independent little wing shop and sports lounge after the marketplace closes. We have Ed's, which is our coffee shop in the library. And meal dollars are also accepted in vending. New this year, we're adding a mobile ordering platform called NutriSlice. So that should be ready to go by the time meal plan begins on August 17th. And again, that's to really help with the queuing and for students to not have to wait in long physically distanced lines. In addition, I'm also the campus dietitian and my office is in campus card. So if there are students with special dietary needs, they should connect with me so I can show you all the tools and opportunities that you'll have to dine on campus.
So like I said at the start of the call, my name is Shelly Muma. And so beyond doing orientation and transition programming, we also work with the ways that students get involved with things outside of the classroom. And so with all of the things that we've been talking about, there will still be active student organizations on campus. Um, They'll probably be meeting in a hybrid format because some of it's going to depend on the size of the student organization and where they are able to find meeting space where people can be appropriately physically distanced from one another. So some organizations will meet in person, some might be meeting virtually. There may be a hybrid of how that works. And the same will be true for any events that they plan. There may be some opportunities to do some small events that are face-to-face, but there'll be other things that happen virtually as well. As incoming first-year students, you have been meeting with your mentors this summer as we've been slowly sharing information that you would have received at an in-person summer orientation. You will be continuing to meet with them when you arrive. That move-in day in August, that Thursday night, you'll be meeting in your FYE groups in person, and you'll continue to meet through late October, once a week, to kind of check in, make sure that things are going well, that you are getting answers to questions, and they have a standard curriculum that they'll go through as well. So those meetings will be in person. You'll be inside in classrooms. If the weather permits, you might be outside for some of those things, but you will be physically distanced and wearing masks in those spaces as well. So anytime there is a student organization meeting or event in person, everyone will have masks on. Typically, a few weeks into the semester, we have an involvement fair where we have over 100 active student organizations at tables outside talking to folks, and the entire first year class is outside walking around. If you have a visual of that in your head as I describe it, it's probably pretty accurate if everybody's standing super close to one another and right up against tables talking to lots of students that are involved with things. So it won't be happening in quite that way this year, but we're working to figure out some software solutions to be able to do something fun in a virtual environment to help students meet other students that are interested in a variety of different types of student organizations. And as first year students, we've asked you to create an account on Rafter to be able to communicate with one another. We've been posting events. You probably got reminders about this session today in Rafter, and we're going to continue to use that throughout the year to communicate about events. That may be how we set some things up in terms of figuring out a virtual involvement fair. You'll end up being able to communicate with student orgs and other types of interest groups in that way. So you'll be continuing to use that. And if you haven't downloaded it, it would be helpful for you if you did, because we're going to try and use that for communication so we're not continually loading up your email inboxes.
Thanks, Shelley. So my name is Crystal Wohler, and I'm the Health Services Director here on campus. And as you can see, SNC has been hard at work to plan for a return to campus that is as safe as possible. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to provide you with important details about the other ways that we are changing the way we do things on campus in an effort to mitigate the risks associated with COVID-19. So many people talked about face coverings, and the only thing I would add to that is please bring plenty of face coverings with you so that you're able to wear one clean face covering every day. It's important that you make sure that you clean your face coverings after each wear. So that is the one thing I will add to the face coverings. Practicing physical distancing, many of my colleagues mentioned this. The college is working again to rearrange the furniture and determine capacity in shared spaces to help with this. And physical distancing works. If people remain more than 6 feet apart, the risk of infection decreases. So it's important that you keep your circle small for now. And what I tell others is just, try to keep people off your contact list, right? So if you are positive, you don't want a really long contact list. So just make sure you keep your physical distance in that 6 feet at least. Conduct daily self-monitoring. So it's critical that everyone isolates and seeks medical advice if exhibiting any symptom of COVID. If you are ill, you should mask, isolate, and avoid close contact with others. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that with testing a bit later in the presentation. It's important to practice hand hygiene. So SNC will have hand sanitizer widely available on campus, as well as touchless faucets in many bathroom locations, offering quick and effective ways to practice hand hygiene. So be sure to bring your own supply of hand sanitizer to keep in your backpack or purse. Get your flu vaccine, your influenza vaccine when it becomes available. Influenza symptoms often mirror COVID symptoms. So getting your influenza vaccine will protect you and others and may lead to less confusion and complicating factors when both illnesses are circulating in the community. Now, health services does offer influenza vaccine on campus. And I just like to remind you all, if you watched the orientation to health services, we are not in network for any insurance company. We will try to bill insurance for flu shots and other services, but we are not in network. So if you know that the flu vaccine is covered at a local pharmacy like CVS or Walgreens, then I would encourage you to get your flu vaccine there if needed. If you're looking for convenience and it doesn't matter that you get it here, then we would be happy to give you your influenza vaccine. But the important thing is to get your influenza vaccine this year. Cleaning frequently touched surfaces. I know Dr. Bailey talked about this. Our facilities and housekeeping teams have implemented enhanced cleaning and disinfection in accordance with the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control guidelines. It's important that we all do our part in cleaning shared spaces before and after use. So please be sure to bring extra cleaning supplies with you for your personal living space. So let's talk a little bit more about testing. So in coordination with local public health, PCR testing, which is the gold standard, is being offered to symptomatic residential students in accordance with the public health guidance for testing, and that's CDC and Wisconsin DHS, which is the Department of Health Services. So with that being said, typically, historically, pre-COVID, we have seen sick people in the health center, but not during COVID. So because we are located on the second floor of the Mulva Family Fitness and Sports Center in a building where lots of healthy people are going to class and exercising, we will not be seeing sick people in our clinic. So if you experience any symptom of COVID, it's important that you contact health services and, just like I said, put a mask on, go to your room, isolate yourself, contact health services, and if it's after hours, contact either campus safety or the residential housing staff on call, and we will give you the instruction to get you to our isolation location on campus. In that isolation facility, our registered nurses will be doing testing, and again, in accordance in collaboration with our local health department, every morning, Monday through Saturday. So that's every morning, Monday through Saturday, we will be doing rounds at the isolation facility and doing testing. And that's as long as we have personal protective equipment and as long as we have testing supplies, we will be offering that service. Because we're coordinating with local public health, this will be a fee-exempt test, again, offered through the state of Wisconsin. So we will provide that service as long as we have personal protective equipment and the test to do so. So the student, or you, the student, would be needing to stay in isolation until the test result comes back negative and your symptoms have resolved. If your test result comes back positive, that's when we work with our local health department and we begin doing contact tracing. And that means we start to ask, who have you been in close contact with 2 days prior to the onset of your symptoms until the time you were put in isolation within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes? That is the definition of a close contact. So remember when I said physical distancing works, keep your circle small. That is the reason, because we don't want that contact list to be long, right? So, so that would happen if you were positive. We would do contact tracing, and then you, as the student and your parents, this would be a discussion, right? The first option would be to return home if it's safe to do so. In many situations, it's not safe to return home. Maybe you have an elderly grandparent living with you, or you have high-risk family members, or you only have one bathroom at home and you'd have to share that bathroom with your family members. So many times it's not safe to return home. And for that reason, then you would stay in isolation until you met the CDC guidelines and cleared through health services that you could be released back to the residential campus. And 3 things have to be met. It has to be 10 days from the onset of your symptoms. And it has to be, and this was just changed by the Centers for Disease Control, it has to be at least 24 hours after your fever has subsided without ibuprofen or Tylenol, and your symptoms have to be improved. So those 3 things have to be met before you can return to campus activity. So you would need to contact your professors and let them know. You would need to contact your employer on campus if you have an employer, or off campus, just to let them know you wouldn't be coming to work. And so in that situation, we would want to have you sign a release of information just for COVID purposes if you are staying on campus, so we can talk with dining services and make sure that you have your meals delivered to the isolation facility, so that we can talk to housekeeping to let them know that enhanced cleaning needs to happen in your spaces. And so we can coordinate with campus safety in the event they would need to respond to your space on campus. So that is what our plan is at this time for testing and isolation. Now, quarantine is a little bit different. So think of isolation as for ill, right? Quarantine is for contacts. So quarantine offers, you still have to have your private bathroom in quarantine, but you have a little more opportunity to be out and about. You can put a mask on if you don't have symptoms, if you're a contact, and you can go for a walk. You still have to return back to your quarantine facility if you don't go home with a private bathroom. You can put a mask on when you're in quarantine, and you can go to the pharmacy. You can put your mask on in quarantine and you can go to the grocery store. You can put your mask on in quarantine and go pick up your food at dining services and bring it back to your quarantine space. So you still have to avoid crowds. You can't go to class, can't go to the library and sit. You can't go to the dining hall if you're in quarantine, but you can get essential things done if you're on quarantine and on campus. Again, the first option, if you're asymptomatic and on quarantine, is that you go home if you can. Some people can't though, right? I mean, some people live in California and they can't get on a plane and go home for 14 days. So again, for that reason, we have space available for quarantine on campus. So we ask that you adhere to the campus isolation and quarantine. And with all of our best efforts, we realize cases of COVID will be identified. So when cases are identified, it's critical that we all abide by the public health guidelines of isolation and quarantine. We have a strong partnership with our local health department. In fact, I meet with the health department director each week in the city of De Pere, and I will be working closely and continue to work closely with them to conduct contact tracing, to coordinate testing, and all things public health. So to make a difference, it's critically important that we all come together and implement these simple, personal, protective actions to create a safer environment for all. More details will be forthcoming. As we know, this information is what we know today. And we're all used to, that this is unprecedented and we're all learning as we go. So plans may be revised as we move forward, but we do look forward to seeing you in the coming weeks. And I just say be safe and well until then. Thank you.
I will only add that you are hearing from the experts, and so, of course, feel free to reach out to anybody you've heard from tonight. Part of my role on campus is to be a problem solver. Sometimes that's for parents, often it's for students. And so I would encourage you, if you have questions about who to reach out to or how to reach out to them, I would encourage you to contact me. I'm the only person named Corday on campus, believe it or not. And so please take down this information, and if something comes up, don't hesitate to get a hold of me, and I will get you in front of the right people to get your problem solved. Lots of good questions have come in, so I want to make sure we've left time to try to get to those.
All right, so I'm gonna go through questions and we'll see how far we can get. I had a question that actually had been submitted to me earlier today that maybe Dr. Bailey or Dr. Rupsch could take. There was a question about study areas, informal study areas in academic buildings, and if they would still be available, especially after 4:30 p.m., like areas where there's soft seating in GMS or those sorts of places.
I can take that. The answer is yes. Again, maintaining physical distancing, wearing a mask. I'm intending that, and to speak for science students who might be using the Gale-Malva Science Center, we have the labs open in the evenings. Students can come in and examine specimens. We'll, of course, require disinfecting and cleaning before and after. There's Apple TV in most rooms in GMS, so you can put something up on a screen to look at. So we assume the same sorts of things we've done in the past, just following the guidelines that we've talked about tonight.
Awesome. There was a question, and this was before we talked about housing, so I think we've answered it, but there was a question about whether or not masks were going to be required in the residence halls beyond residence hall rooms. And we said that yes, that is the case. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Joe.
Nope, that's accurate.
Another question was whether or not the campus center will be open in the fall, and that answer is yes, the campus center will be open in the fall. And I also got a question that says, Crystal, this I think is for you. What has SNC determined needs to happen to be able to move to phase 3 of reopening?
That's a great question. Anytime we move phases, it will be in coordination with our local health department and based on incidents in our community. What we have discussed so far is moving to phase 3 is actually routine, normal operations, right? And so our local government, City of De Pere and Brown County, would have to rescind their emergency order that they have in place right now. And we would likely have to have a vaccine or antivirals or God forbid, herd immunity, right? So, so something has to change pretty drastically to get us to routine operations. And again, that would be in coordination with our local health officials and likely when they rescind the emergency status in our community.
There was a question in the chat that Dr. Bailey also answered in the chat about if students would be informed ahead of time, if it will be a hybrid delivery of classes, and Dr. Bailey said yes, the syllabus will have that information. And if there are students that have an accessibility issue, if they have registered with our Office of Academic Success Support, they'll be contacting those faculty to make sure that they are being able to be supported. Do you have anything to add to that, Dr. Bailey?
I do not.
Okay. There's a question that says, since kitchens are closed, will there be a place on campus to fill up water bottles throughout the day? So I think any of us can answer that. There are water bottle filling stations. Many of them are touchless. You just have to put your bottle up to it and the sensor will fill up your water bottle till you take the water bottle away. Every building has at least one of those water bottle fillers. So you'll be able, as you go to class, you'll see where those are in different buildings. There's a question about move-in and if students are being assigned time slots for move-in and are roommates set for different times, Joe?
Yep, so there will be assigned time slots for every student coming in. You should be getting an email either Friday or Monday with your time slot on it, and your roommate will have the same time slot as you so that you can set up your room together.
Stephen, will performing arts students be asked to purchase face shields for performances or classes?
Actually, that's a little bit of a moving target right now about face shields. I will say that masks are still the best bet. What we've done is that we've looked at a lot of different studies that have been done very quickly over the last, there's this whole aerosol thing that happens, and especially for musicians and actors, they particularly push out a lot, as you can imagine, and without getting gross about it. But what happens is that the face shield does work to some extent visually, because if you're my acting class, I want to see what you're doing with your mouth to see what the articulation process is going through. That might be a temporary thing. But the thing that is true is that the cloth cotton masks seem to capture the particulates, which keeps it from going everywhere. As a matter of fact, the latest very encouraging news that we just had is that our choirs are going to go, because we were concerned about that, because of course when you're singing, you're really producing a lot of force. But they're going to happen. And they found out that the singer who was masked would be okay with the normal 6-foot radius around them. So we were actually moving the choir rehearsals into our Berta Hall, where we have a ton of room. And everyone's just going to be standing further apart, which is going to be a little bit weird for choir people because you're used to standing next to someone of your part, but it is easily adapted to. I think it's going to be a great adventure for us. I hope that answers that.
Joe, there's a question about if students are allowed to bring coffee makers, fridges, and or microwaves, or all of the above.
Yes, you're allowed to bring appliances that do not have open coils or open heating elements. So no toasters, no pizza ovens, things like that. If you're a coffee drinker and want to have a Keurig machine, those are safe. Microwaves are allowed. We ask that they are no more than 700 watts per microwave, one per room, please. Did I hit the other thing? Oh, fridges. Mini fridges are acceptable as well.
Is there a size limit to those? I mean, I know that there is, but what is the size limit for those?
That one I don't remember offhand. I'd have to look that one up.
It's all on your website though, right?
It is, but the general mini fridge is acceptable. Once you start getting to the 4 or 5 foot tall fridges, those aren't acceptable.
Courtney, I'm going to have you answer this one. The question is, are you allowed to leave campus?
You certainly are allowed to leave campus. We would expect you to continue to be safe and to practice physical distancing as you can, that you in the city, Crystal can say more about this. She was involved in the city council meeting last night. The city is in the process of passing an ordinance requiring everyone in the city to wear a mask. That hasn't happened officially yet. We think that will happen next week. And so while they're out and about, they're expected to wear masks. But of course, students are able to go off campus and to be in the community safely. Crystal, is there anything else you would add?
Yes, so the city council did vote last night. The vote won 5 to 3, I believe it was, in favor of a masking ordinance in the city limits of De Pere, which the college is located. And because it wasn't unanimous, there needs to be a second reading of the resolution. And so that's what Corday referenced, that next week, Tuesday, will be that second reading of the ordinance. So that would apply then to businesses in the city limits of De Pere.
Crystal, some colleges are providing a face mask as well as one face shield per student. Will SNC be providing face masks or a face shield for students?
That's a great question. We do encourage you to bring your own because you will likely need more than one. But our facilities department is working to try to see if we can secure face masks for students on campus. So please, because you need more than one, because you need to wear a clean face mask each day, be sure that you do bring some from home. And it's a cloth face covering, so it, you can make them on your own, and there are instructions on our COVID website. It's right from the CDC. It can be a handkerchief. And so just make sure that you do bring some supplies from home as well.
I would also add that Old Navy, you can get 5 masks for $12.50. I think I ordered 10 last night. So, I mean, you can get a hold of them pretty inexpensively. So there's a question that we answered part of this already, but Crystal, are there any established metrics that define when SNC will move from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3?
Yes, so it is always in coordination with our local health department. And as far as metrics, not any concrete metrics. We would like to see our percent of positivity less than 5. Right now in the city limits of De Pere, I think last night it was cited, we were at 3% in the city of De Pere. However, this is always a discussion with our local health department. So even if we have to move backwards, right, to phase 1, it will be in coordination and collaboration with our local health department based on the incidence of illness and disease circulating in the community, and based on, other factors, that the health department is aware of, maybe that the college doesn't. So that will always be in conversation with our local public health partners.
We've got another question that I think was asked before you talked about this, Crystal, but how will the school go about any cases within students that come up? Will there be housing for them, or will they be asked to return home? And yes, there's housing, but they may also be asked to see if returning home is an option.
Yeah, the first option is, of course, to return home if it's safe to do so. So I always put that in there, if it is safe to do so. Our isolation facility is limited. And so if, let's say, a student has a list of 20 contacts, that won't happen, right? Students, you won't have 20 close contacts. But let's say there is a list of 20. When we contact those 20 close contacts who need to be quarantined for 14 days after the last known contact of the positive case, we will ask the student, is it safe for you to monitor your symptoms because you're asymptomatic? Can you do that at home? And that would be a case-by-case scenario. Like I said, some people might be from California, some people maybe can't go home for whatever reason. So the first option is always to return home, but only if it's safe to do so. So yes, we do have isolation and quarantine spaces on campus. They all have their own private bathroom, and they're all located in one facility. So.
For dining, Melissa, can you use a credit card, or can you only use St. Norbert meal credits?
So if you're a commuter student and you don't have a meal plan, you absolutely could use a credit or debit card to pay for a meal. However, I would encourage you to check out another option, because there'll be a less expensive cost per meal. You could add meal dollars on your card. You can add custom cash on your card, which will be less expensive than the sticker price. And there's also optional meal plans that you would have access to as a commuter student.
Yes, and commuters, the director of campus card services is going to do a live Q&A at 4 o'clock on Thursday for just a half an hour that we've posted the information about that in Rafter. So he'll be able to talk to you about custom cash, and that I can send out an email to all the commuters about that too. Crystal, will there be areas outside that students can be without wearing masks?
We have a mask policy that applies to indoor and outdoor spaces, just because, first of all, it would be really hard to manage. If we start making exceptions, as well as the less we are touching our face and taking our mask on and off, the better. And so the President's Cabinet has decided that we will be masking on campus, indoor and outdoor. And so, if you're not on campus and you're outside, so let's say you're on the Fox River Trail. I walk and bike the Fox River Trail, and there are still people with masks, but it's not required. So if, as a student, you want to go to the Fox River Trail, or if you want to walk downtown in the city ordinance does not apply to outdoors, but on campus, it does apply to outdoors.
We'll do 2 more questions, and then we'll be able to collect the information about the others. One, Joe, about laundry facilities. Do students need quarters for washers and dryers, and how many washers and dryers are in the buildings, and are there specific hours they can be used?
Laundry rooms are open 24/7 in the res hall. No quarters are needed. All of them are turned on, I guess, per se, all the time. And the number varies depending on the size of the building. Typically, probably between 3 and 5 washers and dryers per building.
And then this one I think will be for you too, Joe. If school needs to shut down, will students need to take everything with them, or can they leave things like futons, microwaves, and so on, so it will be there when campus opens again?
I don't know if I can answer that question directly yet. It probably depends on where things are at in regards to, if it's towards the end of the semester and we're just closing a few days early to do some deep cleaning because of an increase, we may let students leave everything in over the winter break. Yeah, I guess I can't answer that directly yet until we know what kind of situation that we're placed in at the time. Okay. If we could avoid emptying all buildings like we did in the spring, I would absolutely love to do that, but I think COVID will dictate how we handle that.
Well, it is 6:59. There are some questions we did not get to. I will pull those questions together first thing in the morning and have our panelists respond to them. And hopefully by either the end of the day tomorrow or first thing on Friday morning, we will have a link that we can share with you. We'll be putting it up on the website, and so that you'll be able to see that. The video from tonight, as well as the PowerPoint slides, and then the document where we put together the FAQ information or the questions that are here, will be on the website that we've been using this whole summer to hold all that orientation information. So even if you just go onto snc.edu and search orientation, you will get there, and you'll be looking under the tabs. There are some different tabs there where you can find that information. So thank you so much for attending. We'll be pulling those questions together, and we'll be notifying you when those are up on the website. Thank you so much, and have a great night, everybody.